Business. Hi everybody, Russ here, and it is UFO Paranormal TV and Flying Saucer Television on YouTube, UFO Paranormal TV on Facebook. And tonight my guest is Karma, is it Wild? Karma Wild. And
It is Karma Wild.
So, hi Karma, how are you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Apart from toothache, yeah, not too bad. Oh dear. Yeah. So, as usual, I met my guest Karma on YouTube, on Facebook, and basically fascinated by what I was reading. So let's tell us, Karma, how you got into this subject of UFOs, aliens, and paranormal.
Okay, so I suppose my father was in the military, and we were stationed on Oahu, and it was in the 70s. And if you remember anything about the 70s, UFOs were a huge thing in the 70s. And so I guess I got into it with my next door neighbor. We started out by sitting out in the yard. Of course, living on base, you could stay out in the yard really late. Of course, it was the 70s. So we would lay in the grass and look for UFOs for hours and hours. And of course, being little girls, we saw lots of UFOs, but we didn't really see any UFOs. But I looked and I kept looking. And as I got older, my interest became more keen. And eventually, years later, I did actually have an experience. I had several experiences, but only one that required me going to a doctor to be regressed to remember what happened.
Wow. And what was the result in going to the doctor? What did you find out?
Okay, so let me just give you the background. I was living in Killeen, Texas, which is right by Fort Hood, Army military base. And Killeen is not that far from Waco, if anybody remembers anything about the Waco incident.
Oh, yeah.
And I was actually living there at that time. So it was during that time period, we were living in a duplex community, my two daughters and my boyfriend and myself. And I was sitting on my side porch, which is an enclosed patio without the wall. It's like enclosed on three sides. And I happened to glance up, and going past my vision was what looked like, I hate to be cliche, but it looked like a cigar. And it was an orange-red color. So I thought that it was probably an airplane, although there's the military base, but it was not a military transport. I suppose it was an airplane, and that the reddish-orange color would have been the sun bouncing off the metallic side. And being a little smart butt, I just looked up and I said, well, then come and get me if you're a UFO. So that night, we all went to bed, and I was awoken several times during the night by bright flashing, and I thought, oh, it's storming, but I didn't hear any thunder, but I kept wondering, did I roll my windows up on my vehicle? But I didn't go and check. I kept falling back asleep, and during the course of the night, in addition to waking up to see the flashing, I looked over at my boyfriend, and at one point he was dead asleep, and I woke up again and looked at him, and he was laying stiff, just staring up at the ceiling with the blanket tucked under his chin. And I knew that was weird, but I still fell back asleep. And in the morning when I woke up, my first thought was, it was weird. I jumped up tore off all of my clothes and looked in the big mirror to see if I had any marks on my body. I was like, I don't understand why I'm doing that, but I did it, and I didn't see any marks. And next I went out front and checked the windows on the car, and it had not rained. It had not rained, and I couldn't fathom what the heck all that bright flashing was about. And I asked Holly, the little girl that lived next door to us, and she was friends with my daughters, and the other two girls that lived in the next duplex, they all played together. And I asked Holly, did the storm wake you up last night? She said there was bright flashing, and it woke me up. And I'm like, yeah, me too, but I didn't see any rain. She goes, no, I didn't see any rain either. And it wasn't until later in that day when she rode with me to Waco to drop off my children for my ex-husband to pick them up for his visit. On the way back, Holly told me a story that it kind of blew my mind. She said that there was more to it than just the bright flashing. She said she remembered sitting on the side porch, and she was looking up at what can only be described in her own words as a Bigfoot. I was like, a Bigfoot? And she said, yes. I'm like, oh, okay. So we all had crazy dreams. And then within a couple of days, the little girls next door, all the children were playing together, and I asked them, did that storm wake you up the other night? And they said, no, but my uncle woke us up by turning the lights on and off over and over again. I'm like, okay, so there's four of us that saw the bright flashing lights.
Yeah.
And so being a UFO enthusiast, my first thought was, what am I not remembering? So I scheduled an appointment with a psychiatrist who is also a hypnotherapist, and he deals with trauma cases. So I did go to see him, and he did regress me. What ended up happening, as far as I can remember, was that there was the bright flashing, and there was the sense that there were people in the room with us. And then there was the ungodly feeling of complete weightlessness and seeing the walls go past me during going down the hall. And then I described standing on my back porch and looking at a wall, just a solid wall of fog, which coincidentally Holly also talked about too.
Yeah.
And my next memory was standing in the backyard. There was only one tree in the backyard, and I was standing next to the tree, and I could peripherally see people on this side and on this side, but I wasn't looking at them. And I had the sense that there was a short person, and I'm 5'6", so they were shorter than me, but they were wearing overalls, but not like these.
No.
And I saw a symbol on the front of the overalls, which was an X with a long line through the middle and a circle in the center of that.
Really?
And my whole attention was focused on the branches of the tree, because what I was seeing was the equivalent of taking a metal colander and shining a 1,000 lumen light through that colander, and the way things came through. And so that's where all my attention was absorbed. And he tried, I was cognizant the whole time I was being hypnotized and regressed. He tried to push me further, and it blew my circuits. I couldn't go any further. So I screamed, and I jumped up, and I reached in my pocket the amount of money that I knew the appointment cost, threw it on his desk, and I ran out. That guy chased me down the hallway. He's like, what happened? What did you see? What did you see? I'm like, I can't. And I just left. And that's where it's always stayed. I just could not go any further than, and I can still see it vividly, looking up at that tree and seeing those lights shine through bottom of what looks like a metal colander.
So was that? Can you see? Hang on.
Yes, but make the lines extend past the circles.
Yeah, like hang on. Like that.
I can't see it. A little bit over, a little bit. Like that, but extend the other lines too. Not as far. The middle line is the really long one, and the other ones just extend just past the circle.
Right, I get it. Yeah, now then. That's funny, is that? Because I keep on coming up with people that live in these big forest areas that say that this is something what Bigfoots sort of like leave around.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and it's like it's a message apparently to say to other Bigfoots, this is our territory.
Oh, wow. That's so weird. I mean, it makes perfect sense because Holly said that she did see a Bigfoot.
Well, when you mention Bigfoot, then I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, because I'm just starting to look into the subject of Bigfoot, and I'm looking at how many people have said that they've seen something very similar to what these, which appears to be like the runic alphabet,
Yeah.
The Norse alphabet. So, and I do sort of like read runes a little bit because I am Viking. Both families were Viking where I live in England, sort of like. So it's just, is it coincidence? I don't think it is.
I don't either. Now, I just within the last couple of days, posted a theory that I've bounced around for a long time.
Yeah.
And basically saying that Bigfoot, aliens, shadow persons, ghosts, everything in that realm, even cryptids, all come from the same dimension, but they can step over into our physical dimension, but they cannot sustain themselves over here. And to me, that makes sense because we've never found a corpse. There's never even any kind of archaeological history of these things that have been here for eons. People have cited these things for so long that they're in the people's records. Egypt has records of aliens. There's many. Okay, angels. Angels to me, they are not these beautiful supreme beings. They are supreme, yes, but they don't look like us unless they want to look like us. I believe they're aliens.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that because I've got to pull people in when they're talking about beautiful angels and stuff, and I've got to remind them because I was a born again Christian for a long number of years, and I spent a long time, reading Bible. But the whole thing about angels is that there was not given a human body.
Oh,
there was
they weren't.
Initially there was lights, balls of light. Pardon? Sorry, love.
Most angels are described in the Bible as male. They do not effeminate angels.
No, but there also there wasn't given a body, and this is something that apparently this is where you get the going against Jesus and God, because angels wanted to be like humans because they saw humans, male and female, as beautiful, and they haven't been given a body. So it's a very romantic look and I think it comes from, you know, sort of like
They had
there's
to
an
depict them in forms that people could understand. So
well,
when the
it's
great
a very romanticized sort of like way
exactly.
of thinking. That's all, you know. But unfortunately, angels are not what people, you know, sort of like think they are.
No, if you saw a real angel, you would be terrified. They are not. They're not anything that our minds could
Take,
decipher. Any way of
yeah,
being human,
and take it
and they're
in,
truly
yeah.
not.
Yeah, well, I would totally agree with you. So, you know, this is, you know, this is one of the things that when you listen to people talking and about angels, and you know, sometimes I just switch off and all right, then, yeah,
Exactly the depiction that they're used to seeing, what they were
yeah,
taught angels like, not their true forms.
yeah,
But it's interesting to me that you brought up that kind of recognition. When I was in college, I did my term paper in speech class on aliens, as a matter of fact.
all
So
right,
I used biblical quotes in the Reader's Digest Children's Bible. It clearly states, "Let us not make, or let us not let man have our eat from the tree of knowledge, so that he will not know what we know." Clearly pluralized. Then I went on to quote von Daniken,
mm,
Eric von Daniken, who wrote Chariots of the Gods and If There Be Gods. And Eric von Daniken brought up one extremely poignant point. He said, if we were derived of Adam and Eve derived of Adam, and mankind comes from that bloodline, essentially, then where does the Rhesus blood factor come in? That's alien.
yeah. Well, it's funny you should
Negative?
say that because yet again, we're talking about the Garden of Eden. Um, Eve wasn't Eve wasn't Adam's first wife. Um, Adam had a first wife, and I think they called her what Lelia, and
Lilith. Lilith
and
was his first.
and she was a bit of an handful for him. And he said to God, "Please take her away." She used to apparently she used to beat him around and stuff. You know what I mean? Sort of like, and he says to God, "Please take it." You know, she used to jump on him and all sorts. So he said, "Please take her away." You know, it's a bit like my ex. Take
You
her,
can
please.
take that
Anyway.
further and say that Lilith was actually Satan personified, because Lilith tried to lead Adam astray. She refused to bow down to Adam, and Adam couldn't deal with her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you know,
And
like get rid of her for a model that does as she's told. But
right, exactly.
the other thing is, right? Yeah, it mentions about them being the first, right? Yeah. So that's wrong for a start off because Adam and Eve wasn't the first. And the other
Right,
thing, it mentions the others in the garden, right? Who were the
right,
others?
exactly.
And where did they come
So
from?
first of all, the Bible, that as we know it, has been corrupted from
Oh,
the
you can say that
original.
again, yeah.
Been corrupted in its terminology. It's been corrupted in its context and in its volume.
Mm,
There are actually another, I believe, 72 books that are supposed to be the entire Bible,
mm,
in addition to the one we know. And
yeah,
then you take that corruption, and then you do
yeah.
the new version of the Bible, which is even further corrupted. And what you've got is a grouping of stories.
Oh, yeah, of
As
course,
is
yeah.
exactly what the Bible is a group of stories with many different storytellers.
Mm,
But throughout the Bible, there are many mentions of supernatural beings, which of course God is supernatural.
mm,
There are other things in there, like Ezekiel's wheel.
Yeah.
That in itself, I've seen artist depictions of that wheel. It can be nothing more than a machine.
Oh, that's right.
And
Yeah.
if you try and put yourself in the context of the time that these people were witnessing these things with their limited knowledge of technology or no technology whatsoever, they're going to describe things in terms that they understand in their time. So when they speak of flying chariots, they're speaking of UFOs.
Yeah.
They have no other way to describe it. They have not seen a flying machine ever, except for that. And they're trying to equate it with something that they can rationalize it to. So I always found that extremely interesting. My pastor goes crazy because I'm always picking apart the stories in the Bible, and he wants me to have faith and just believe. And I'm like, but I have to question too. I'm allowed to do that.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the Bible all the way through, it talks about all things paranormal. Everything is in there.
Exactly.
And it's talking about, most of the time miracles, which are paranormal, things that not the norm. So,
You
yeah.
have artificial insemination on a woman. If you ask me, and boy, this will get me in a lot of trouble, but I've always thought that Jesus was an alien, a hybrid.
Well, a lot of people have that sort of belief. A lot of people have that belief.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it can't
remember one of the first records I bought, right, yeah,
be right.
in 1970 odd. It was by Chris de Burgh, who sung Woman in Red, Lady in Red. And
Yes.
he brought a song out, and it was called A Spaceman Came Traveling. And it was a
Probably.
Christmas song sort of thing about Jesus. And so I've still got that record somewhere, and it is incredible. When you listen to words, you're thinking to yourself, yeah, and a lot of people believe that.
Russ, what if Jesus didn't look like a human being or not entirely human? When people recognize Jesus as being the Son of God, like immediately gazing upon him, what set him so far apart where you can look at that person and say, that's Son of God? They didn't have TV back then. They didn't have newspapers. They didn't have, press junkets. So how was Jesus able to walk into a place where nobody knew him and they knew that he was something different from them? So I've always thought that Jesus didn't really look entirely human. And that would have, and it's normal back in those times, if you didn't look like us, then, we would either ostracize you or kill you.
Yeah.
And act like us, we would ostracize or kill you or banish. I mean, in my mind, that makes perfect sense. If Jesus is a hybrid, then you wouldn't necessarily look like we look.
No.
So the question would be, how do you look?
Yeah, I mean, this is it. I mean, we don't know. I mean, there's no, obviously, I think there's been some drawings of Jesus, but very, very, not very good. And so, I mean, the other thing is there were paintings of Jesus, and what was said was that one of the emperors wanted to put his son's face on this image of Jesus. You know what I mean? So that means most of the images, what we see, are not of actual Jesus. I think it was one of the...
Jesus wasn't white. He was not white. He was not pure white. Just
Well,
from
it'd have been hard to be, like coming from Middle East with the sun, sort of like it would have been very hard. But having said that, sort of like, that there's a big question mark about that,
right,
because the fact is that there are some Jews that are, because that's what Jesus was, of course, he was Jewish. And
right.
there's these certain Jews that have blonde hair and blue eyes and are
Here's
very
my
pale.
question. The fact that the Vatican has some portion, somehow has some Jesus blood.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why won't they release it and let us, test it for DNA? It only takes a drop.
No. It opens up all sorts of things, does this? And this is why some people are not in favor of anybody keeping DNA, blood, because once you've got your DNA and your blood, they can clone you.
That, I believe, would just blow everything apart. Everything that we've ever taught will just go to pieces.
And I mean, the thing is,
Catholic Church built on this image of Jesus. And let's face it, the Catholic Church is a moneymaker.
Of course it is, yeah. Yeah.
They're not going to release it. They never will. But
no,
it would be fascinating if we were able to do that, or would do that.
They only do like the government things to suit them and to suit their cause. I mean,
exactly,
I've been listening for the past couple of years now, all this nonsense about the Americans releasing information, right? Yeah, and sort of like it's laughable. Because we've got this. Oh look, we've got this TikTok. TikTok. Sorry, video footage. It's the most abysmal footage that you'll ever see of black and white footage of what could be anything from a so-called cockpit of an aircraft.
Right.
Well, you could be in a flight simulator using one of them things. You know what I mean? It means nothing. It's
way too easy for these technologically advanced people to do anything they want. It's too easy to fake out.
And the thing is, I've taped over better footage. I've got a lot of footage up on my YouTube channel on Flying Saucer Television. I've taped over better footage than they've ever shown.
Because we are living in the age that we are living in, I have like a saying that I say: for those of you who believe, I don't need to prove anything. For those of you who don't believe, I will never be able to produce enough evidence.
No.
And that's the true statement I've ever made in my life.
Yeah.
And it's fact. You either you believe, which tends to lead you into tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Or you don't believe, and there's nothing that's going to make you believe. But there's no walking the fence with this stuff.
It's like
you either there is more to our world than what we just know.
Yeah.
You'll never understand.
Remember this, Karma. Always remember this. You can never, ever show reason to a psychopath. Right, yeah? A psychopath, no matter what you reason with them and you show them the evidence, they'll always be a psychopath.
Exactly.
And a lot of the time, the psychopath, what they want to do, they want to discredit you or kill you. And that's a fact. And there's a lot of psychopaths. There's a lot of psychopaths out there walking around now because at caring community, because there is none, they're let loose, and most of them end up on on the internet.
You are so correct with that. And it is terrifying that you're not allowed to express your belief system freely without being attacked sometimes. Like I post a picture of a cryptid that I call it a cryptid. I don't know what the hell it is. I accidentally caught it in a graveyard. I don't know what it is. It's been an authenticated photo. It is really there. It did happen. I took the picture. But I've gotten death threats behind that. I'm like, are you freaking crazy? It's just a damn picture. I caught something. I don't know what it is. You don't know what it is. And because nobody's caught it before, they just don't want to believe it. But everything unknown or everything known was at one point in time unknown.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, I've had death threats for. I've been doing this now since 1997, and you know, even back then, I was getting death threats. You know, sort
Crazy.
of like, I'm still here.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? It's a dangerous world that we live in. It's always been dangerous. But the internet has made it more accessible to people who have dangerous minds. And those dangerous minds are able to explore in secret what they used to not be able to explore in secret. So when I hear about people who have a large fan base and, you know, they get death threats and they don't kind of take it very seriously, you should. Because there are a lot of sick people out there, and they're just getting sicker. They're not getting better. No. So, yeah, I mean, I'm always going to hope you'll be okay, but you know, you should always take those kind of threats, you know, seriously. You never know. Just never know.
Well, it's like, you know, if a psychopath wants to bump into me, they might have a different feeling about me.
We would hope, right? Just hope. But getting back to paranormal, it was just probably 2 or 3 months ago that I was driving home from a job site. I'm a contractor, and I do a lot of work out of town. And I was driving home from a job site, and I noticed a very bright light off to my left. And it was just so bright, and it was right at twilight. And so as I was driving, I was keeping my eye on it, wondering what the heck it was. And at one point, I actually stopped in the middle of the road and took a series of 3 or 4 pictures. And I posted them. And, you know, a lot of people said, well, that's a drone. And I'm like, it can't be a drone. If you look at the picture, the propellers are moving this way, up and down, as opposed to being sideways like the propellers on a drone is.
Yeah.
So I did a report to MUFON with it. And she asked me a lot of questions, and I answered them honestly. And, you know, she came to the conclusion that it was a drone. But I happened to be driving to that same job site again during the day, and these people had a massive drone in a field out in that direction. And I stopped and asked them to take a picture of it with me standing next to it. The blades are this way. They told me the blades never run this way. They're always this way.
Right.
And you can see clearly in the pictures that the blades are like, or whatever the power source, whatever it is, are up and down. You can see that it's lateral or horizontal. But whatever is lateral. And I was like, it wasn't that. This thing was huge. It was huge. It was quiet, and it did not move in a hurried motion. It actually kind of wobbled really fast. And that's in the picture. You can see that it wobbled.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've gotten every excuse in the world, but never a definitive answer. It's not a drone. It is not a drone. Standing next to that big drone I can tell you right here, right now, with absolute 100% certainty, that was not a drone. I don't know what it was, but
Yeah,
it wasn't
I
a drone.
mean, the problem is, and I don't know why we've come to this, but it would seem that some groups are wanting to get away from the answer being a UFO or some kind
Right,
of
right when it
alien
finally became,
technology. So
it seems
why?
like the more the government gives us, the U.S. government gives us, the less people want to believe that they're telling you the truth now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like,
They have acknowledged that, hey,
and
our
remember, these are so-called groups of people that are supposed to, it's like I've seen things and I've gone, oh well, it could be this, it could be that. Keep an open mind, right? Keep an open. If
right,
you don't know, keep an open mind. But sometimes the evidence, it is so blatant that it's more than just. It's something that isn't it's a UFO. It isn't something that you can look at and say for certain it's a drone, an aircraft, an helicopter.
I
Um,
got,
you know, and why are these people doing this?
because they want to believe, but on their terms. They want to have something that they can identify with, that they can understand, and anything that goes beyond their concept of understanding it's got to be something rational. It cannot be completely irrational.
Yeah,
And I'm here to tell you that there are things out there in the sky, on the land, below the land, in the ocean that we cannot explain. I can show, many pictures of creepy things that I've caught photos of, and I can't explain them, and neither can you. You can give me what you think, but the fact is, we just don't know. Now, if you push me, I would absolutely tell you that there are many portals, many ways that these things can travel interdimensionally. We are not the only existence. Our reality is not the only reality. Otherwise, these things that we see, these things that we hear about, these things that people show us pictures of, they just disappear. Where are they going? Where are they going? For all the years that people have witnessed Bigfoot, where is one bone fragment? Just one. The reason
yeah.
they're here, today,
There's
gone tomorrow, is they don't
a,
live here.
a lot of animals you'll find are like that. There's a lot of animals. You try to find the bones of animals in the wild and you won't find them. You know, um,
Right?
it's just one of those things. But the thing is, the stories that you hear about these Sasquatch, Bigfoot, sort of like these cryptos are just unbelievable. They seem to be able to just materialize and dematerialize into some
Thank you.
kind of other dimension. It's
Exactly.
like a lot of the time you're getting cryptos and you're getting UFOs at the same time. You're getting orbs that seem to
I
be
agree.
around them. You're getting
I agree.
shadow people turning up.
If Okay, so UFO flaps, where there's multiple sightings over a period of time,
Yeah.
and suddenly it's just done. There's no more. Would it not make sense to just say that there is a doorway that gets opened? They're zipping in, they're exploring, they're getting back where they belong before the door closes.
Oh yeah.
And then you got X amount of time before the door closes. I don't know. I'm just postulating here.
It's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. It's a good way of looking at it.
Right. I mean, even the Bermuda Triangle. That's supposed to be, I don't know if you ever read anything about Atlantis. I love the theory of Atlantis or the stories of it. Plato began the stories. Allegedly, Atlantis sits within the Bermuda Triangle. Now, I cannot remember what the name of the book was, or even the author's name at this point. It was many, many years ago I read it. Oh, it's called Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. And that author postulated that Atlantis had sunk, and it's in the Bermuda Triangle, but Atlantis had some kind of massive crystal that was actually an engine of some sort. And it connected to other engines all across the earth. In other words, it kind of made a grid, power grid. And because that kind of engine can never be turned off, that it causes havoc in the Bermuda Triangle, and it causes storms. It causes, boats to sink. It causes aircraft to disappear. It causes, magnetic pull, which is, it causes the compass to spin, instruments to malfunction. I kind of believe that. There's got to be something there causing all of that. And at the same time, there's a lot of UFOs in the Bermuda Triangle in that area.
That's right, yeah. I mean, most of the aircraft that have gone missing in the Bermuda Triangle have reported seeing sometimes strange lights, sometimes they've even said UFOs. They've been surrounded by lights, they've been surrounded by UFOs. So
fog, light, weather anomaly. It's I would love to go if I thought I could come back. I would love to try it. But if I could, I'd like that last trip. But you have, where you're at, you have a beautiful example of a power station, and that's your, what is that, Stonehenge.
Yeah.
Stonehenge is supposed to be an extremely powerful place.
Yeah. There's many places, sort of like in the UK. There's a lot of stone circles. There's a lot of monuments, standing stones. I found something incredible about 20 years ago, that there were other places where there was like standing stones that had been pulled down to make accommodation, to make these big flats.
Oh, wow.
And, in the United Kingdom. So that means that, they've dug up these stones and took them to quarries.
Oh, man.
And got rid of them. And just to make these big, these big flats, And you're thinking to yourself, wow, why have you done that? That's our history.
You gotta think that there's going to be problems in those flats because you're sitting right on top of a power grid.
Yeah, exactly.
I would think.
Yeah,
I can't.
Exactly what I thought. Because these things are all on something called ley lines, these invisible lines.
Right, exactly. There are way lines, and those are facts.
Yeah. If you have a look on a map, you can see.
Yes, I look at my maps. I do that all the time whenever I find unusual things. I do a lot of research, especially in the areas that I live in. And my first thought is there a way line, because there's so much happening here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've got some old maps going back, not that old, but, you can see where there's been ley lines marked on them, because there were an old man that used to do all this. and he had hundreds of maps with ley lines, and he passed away. And I would have loved to have got hold of some of the some of the magazines what he made, and some of the maps what he did, because he was talking about things like gateways, doorways, and portals.
Yes, yes. And there are naturally occurring gateways and portals. There's also a lot of portals that have been opened by people who don't know what they're doing. They want to open a doorway so they can have an experience, but they neglect to shut it.
Mm.
So if you took a piece of fabric and you perforated it a lot of times so that you could just see through it. Well, if you don't pull the threads to close that hole, then the hole just spreads. And eventually it ruins your fabric. For whatever reason you want to do that. It's just an analogy. But we are creating issues that did not exist previously. If people want to know why there is so much negativity in this world, you need to look at the paranormal explosion that has happened over the last 20 years. Yeah. You got a lot of amateurs out there that are doing things they shouldn't be doing and don't understand what they're doing, and they're not controlling it if they even could control it. They just walk away. And what they're leaving behind.
Yeah. I would agree with you. Because it's like this thrill factor. Everybody wants to be, like go on a ghost hunt and be thrilled and scared. But it's not a thing to be messed around with, really.
No, they are not things to be messing around with. I always thought that I knew. I thought I knew a tremendous amount about the paranormal world until I purchased my house. And over the course of 3 years, 5 people died after having encounters with my house. 2 weeks after that encounter, they died.
Really?
So once or twice, coincidence. 3 times and up, you're dealing with something that's not a coincidence.
Is that the house one that you're in now?
No, I abandoned that house.
Oh, right. You said, yeah. Wow.
Last time I was in there, the thing that was in there had been attacking me. It had been bullying me really bad. And I knew, like I told you when we first started talking, I thought that I knew my house was haunted because I felt like somebody was there while I was gone.
Yeah.
And I would come check things. But beyond that, I was taking a shower, and I lived alone. It's a big house. I lived alone, and my ex-boyfriend and my son would stay over quite a bit because they would work jobs with me. And on this particular time, I was at home alone, and I was taking a shower. I reached for a razor, and I looked at that razor. I'm like, whose razor is this? Now, my ex-boyfriend, he hasn't shaved. He has a beard. And my son, I called him. I'm like, did you leave your razor? And he's like, no. And I sent him a picture. He said, that's not mine. I'm like, whose is it? So at this point, like I told you, I became convinced that my house was haunted, but it was haunted by me, and that I had schizophrenia. I was doing things behind my own back, which would look like a haunted house to a person that didn't know they had schizophrenia.
Yeah.
And so it took me a bit longer and a lot of incidents to finally figure out that there was something very bad here. And I spoke to Bishop James Long about it, because after staying at my house overnight, my son 2 weeks later committed suicide, and he did it while he was most likely under possession. And so I was concerned that, he was drugged to hell. And Bishop Long, he was very kind, and he was very understanding. And he explained to me that no, he did not go to hell, despite, he was messing around with black magic, as well as my ex-boyfriend. And so whatever was in that house was either already there, and the 3 of us being together aggravated the situation, or Bishop Long said that there was a portal that was opened by our energies, our combined energies, and the fact that this house already had a history, which I knew nothing about when I bought it. And I got the brunt of it because I lived there the whole time. Everybody else just came and went.
Oh.
So I abandoned that house. The last time I put the key in my front door, I was standing on the front porch. It was late at night, which is nothing, strange for me to come home very late at night. I like to work until I don't want to work anymore. I put the key in the door, and I was just turning the lock when somebody behind me yelled, "Boo!" And of course, I jumped with my fist up. And there was nobody there, and I'm like, I'm done. I am done with this. I can't do it anymore. So at that point, I grabbed what I wanted, threw it in storage, sold everything else, and I abandoned. I sold the house back to the person who sold it to me for $1,000. And I still don't. I have several job sites around that house. I will not go anywhere near that house to this day, and that's been 4, coming up on 5 years.
I can understand that. Wow,
That
is incredible.
It was bad. That thing tried to make me kill myself. It was talking to me. And if you don't know how it feels to think that you're absolutely insane, that right there would convince you. I really did think I was mentally ill and I needed help. But the minute I got away from that house, everything changed. It was talking to me. And it's an indescribable feeling to be in a home alone and have something audibly speaking to you, telling you, your son is dead and he was so much better than you. Why are you still alive? You need to kill yourself, over and over and over and over again. So, yeah, when I tell you I've seen, felt, heard, and experienced all kinds of paranormal, that was absolutely the culmination of the worst. And I quickly found out I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. Movies can't tell you. Stories can't tell you. TV shows can't tell you. Even if you believe already, you'll never really believe until you experience it. And that's the same thing with every kind of supernatural event.
Yeah.
You know everything about aliens and UFOs, but there's going to be something someday maybe that comes along and it'll convince you you don't know jack. Because what we're taught through the media and popular, opinion is not necessarily always the truth. I'm more trusting of the person who is ostracized because they have crazy views than I am of the mainstream. I'm going to always look at that person that has a view that is just to the left of what we all think something is, because I believe that person knows more. And they're labeled as being crazy or, unbalanced because they don't take the common view. They've had an experience and they're trying the best they can to tell you what happened, and people won't believe them.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. But so, yeah, it's like you've come across a lot then. So, like haunted houses, UFOs, encrypted. I mean, that what you were telling us earlier on. I was still looking at that little drawing what I've done. Like with the runic symbol and what have you. So, I know you sent us some pictures earlier. I haven't lined them up as well. Flipping heck. The pictures of UFOs and what have you. So
I believe
say again, sorry.
I believe that all of it is connected in some way. There is some common thread between all of these things, these otherworldly things.
Yeah.
That they're connected somehow.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, one of the things, like I say, I'm just getting into looking into with the cryptozoology, and Bigfoot and Sasquatch and what have you, is the astounding number of people that seem to have disappeared in these areas, sort of like these vast forests, in the United States and other countries. But there seems to be people that they've gone out and they've found the vehicles with all the gear, the tents, all the equipment, the clothing, and some cases they've even had like the bank books and money, sort of like, and it's been found, but they've gone missing. And, so like they know that people haven't been taken for like a crime, as in, taken for money, like they haven't done it. They haven't sort of like taken them because they've wanted to, steal from them. But these people have just gone missing and they've never been found, like to this very day. And we're talking about hundreds of people.
You have to wonder, where are they disappearing to? It's not, to our knowledge, possible to just step off the face of the earth, never to be seen, heard, or found in any way again.
But yet it happens.
I mean, are these people being abducted? Are they finding, like I said, those doorways that just, suddenly appear? Are they stepping through it? And, could they still be alive?
And the other thing, what we're coming across now, are these stairways that they're finding.
You hit on the one thing I absolutely love. The stairways in the woods.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so right now I'm on a job site that is right next to the Sumter National Forest. So it's everything I can do when I drive past the entrance of that forest, not to go in there and start looking for staircases. I have been out in national parks looking for them. They say that you're not supposed to go up that staircase. You're free to walk around it in most incidences, but I'm going straight up that staircase. I really am. I've just got to know. That is one of my passions. I would love to find one.
I mean, I read of one incident where somebody went to the top of the stairs and put his arm out, and the next thing, half his arm had been sort of like incinerated.
Yeah.
Sort of like, and he fell down the steps and, sort of like, wow.
I'm still going up and I'm jumping off the end. I want to see what happens. If it's the last thing I do, you know what? At least I went doing an adventure. That is on my bucket list, is to find one of those staircases. That's like my thing. I can't believe you brought that up. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this are things that I'm looking to do. I mean, sort of like, once I get back on track, because I've been sort of like a little bit out of it for the past couple of years, with like ill health and what have you. But now, I want to get out there and I want to start looking around and investigating more.
Yeah, I mean,
a lot to do.
I'm not going to live forever. I do my own thing. I work alone. I live alone. I adventure alone. If I go out chasing an adventure, I mean, dang, that's like the greatest way you can go, rather than sitting, at work having a heart attack. I can't think of a more. I want to go out doing something I absolutely love, and it's going to be chasing an adventure. Um, I can find nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with it. But
No, there isn't. There isn't. But you've got to be very, very careful, of putting yourself in danger.
look, I
Like
mean,
you said,
driving on the highway an hour and a half to get to my job site. In my mind, I'm in more harm's way being on the highway than I am out exploring.
I know what you're saying, yeah. But you've got to be careful because some of these places that we're talking about, you know, um, and these stairways and areas where people have gone missing, um, you've got to be a little, you have got to, take heed, be very, very careful.
I'm cautious, but you know what? I am actually on a case that I've been working on for almost 2 years of a young lady who vanished, just vanished.
Wow.
She was out one night and was never heard or seen or anything again. She's gone. And I've been on this case looking for her for, almost 2 years.
Wow.
And it intrigues me because in my mind, nobody just vanishes.
No.
And so I'm out there looking for her, and I'm out there, and I'm working with the police on it. So it's not like I'm out there rogue.
No.
I am working with the police. And during the course of the investigation, through undisclosed means, I was given a piece of rock. It's concrete, but it's got symbology on it, and it is connected with the case in some roundabout way. But what I have found with this rock, I was allowed to take a chunk of it. And I've got videos of it on my page. I live everything. So I've got videos of it on my page. And this rock, impossibly, I can put my testers to it. It's the testers you use in outlets to see if the outlet is hot, so you don't get yourself shocked to death. So I put my testers to it just as an experiment. This rock, even a small fragment, and I had the big chunk too. I call it Mama Rock. It's huge. When I put my testers to it, this thing has a cycle. It has like a sine wave. It goes from 0 on DC current, direct current, up to about 400, cycles back down to 0, goes back up to 400, cycles back down. It can't do that. It's irrational to think that it does that, but it does that. And I've got the proof. I've even still got my tiny shard that I was given. And that one is just as hot as the big one was. So this rock, this concrete, is alleged to be infused with some kind of ritual. And, people have told me it's got, this in it, or it's got that in it, and that'll hold the current. Well, let me tell you something. This rock was sitting in a plastic container in a metal holding cell for approximately a year before I ever saw it.
Yeah.
So there was no way of absorbing any charge, and it would have discharged everything. Now, if you electrify a piece of metal using electromagnetic current, it will keep a charge forever. You can never unmagnetize it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it doesn't do that. It doesn't do the sine wave. So we're telling me it had pyrite in it. So I went and bought 2 pieces of pyrite just to show. Pyrite does not, in itself, by itself, just emit electrical charge up to 400. You can run a microwave off that little rock.
Yeah.
I've come to the conclusion it's some kind of engine. I consulted a psychic. She says that it's part of a portal. And that makes sense to me. And that this girl went missing because of that portal. She equated this young lady going missing to a kind of abduction. And given the area that this all happened in, I tend to believe this is a very old, I mean, South Carolina by itself is an old, state.
Yeah.
But this is an area of South Carolina that was founded. It's the tail end of an area that was founded by runaway slaves, Civil War deserters, just ne'er-do-wells, a bunch of people who practice, different kinds of worship, different kinds of magic. And so it's a powerful place. It really, truly is. You cannot help but feel the energy when you get over there.
Wow. That's amazing.
Fascinating. I'm still experiencing that little shard.
Wow.
But it blew my mind to see that just a chunk of concrete can have that kind of capability. If that's real, then other things have to be real too.
I know what you're saying. Well, Karma,
I'm saying
that's an hour, more or less. The show now is coming to an end, and it's been fantastic having you on the show. And you'll have to come on again, and we'll have to chat more about this case and other things. So
thank you. I love.
I'll just come off from being live now and say thank you everybody for watching, and thank you Karma Wild. It's been a fantastic show.